Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting held this afternoon via Zoom, Tuesday, March the 2nd, 2021 at 3 p.m. I think I have seen everybody. Looks like they're just about ready to go. I'll have a roll call vote for commissioners at this time. Abley,
Here.
Bowie,
Present.
Carswell,
Present.
Taylor, Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. And I am present, Madam Clerk. I believe that's all of us. Okay, gentlemen, you've had the agenda in your possession a few days. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, so moved. Maynard.
Thank you, Maynard. All those in favor, Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That's all of us, Madam Clerk. All right, that brings us to presentations today. We have no scheduled presentations. We have no scheduled public hearings, so that brings us right on to item number 5, consent agenda. First item on the consent agenda today is setting forth support to increase broadband access throughout Burke County. This is an item that we've talked about numerous times, and we often have folks who have difficulty getting broadband. And of course, COVID has made that more aware than ever. Gentlemen, I hope you've had a chance to look at that. I won't read the entire resolution. Any questions regarding Commissioner Carswell? Would you like to make any comment on the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, access to broadband has been a problem for Burke County over several years. The county manager and all of us as commissioners have done everything we could to narrow that digital divide that is present here in Burke County. Obviously, COVID-19 exacerbated that issue. We did a good job of furnishing hotspots for schools, but obviously we still are short broadband in Burke County. If you remember in your map book that you got from NCACC, it indicated that over 1/3 of Burke County, over 1/3, 33 or more percent of Burke Countyans do not have access to any kind of broadband, no connection whatsoever. And unfortunately, 21% of the people in Burke County do not have a computer or any smartphones or anything that they can use to get to the internet. Internet being a source of our life right now, as far as even making contact with health facilities during the COVID situation. It is as it is. It is imperative that we stay on top of the North Carolina General Assembly to make sure that we have broadband in our area. There have been bills that have been brought before the General Assembly. They don't go near far enough. So I just hope that we can approve this resolution and that we can move forward with broadband, trying to get access to it here in Burke County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Johnny. Any questions or comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple. One of the things I was hoping to see, and if I thought about it earlier, I would have called Kay or the manager and asked, do we have a map of our county showing where this is not, where we lack that broadband coverage? Where are the pockets that there's no access to? Do we have a map of that?
Several years ago, we did a survey and it showed that pretty much anything 2 miles south and 2 miles north of the interstate doesn't have adequate broadband.
And my second question, Brian, I don't know, I guess you can answer this one too, would be built around, I thought we had teamed up or supported a couple of commercial entities that would provide that broadband. Did that not go anywhere or stopped, or what happened to that?
There were, I think, some communities up around the lake that we helped them to get in touch with some smaller providers, and they were able to take care of very limited number of homes up around the lake, but I don't think there's anything much outside that area.
Okay. Who do we intend to submit this resolution to?
This resolution will be going to the North Carolina General Assembly as a part of our NCACC organization as well. Can you help me out there, Johnny?
NCACC, this is our #1 goal that came out in your books. I hope that you have gotten those so you can see that broadband
Yep.
is the #1 issue.
I did.
#1 issue that we have going right now. So this actually will go to the NCGA plus NCACC plus the Broadband Committee and the NCGA. All 100 counties should be doing a resolution.
Right. And I guess my last question would be is there not any of the mobile services or computer provided services that are interested in making all that money that they obviously could have if they provided that service to what we call the dark spots or hot spots, whichever way you want to refer to it. It looks like there ought to be some interest, because if I believe your number was close to 2/3 of the people in Burke County do not have broadband.
1/3.
1/3, okay. Good chunk of money to be made for the right person, huh? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on this matter? All right, hearing none for leaving this item on our agenda. Those in favor, Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes,
and I vote yes as well. That's all of us, Madam Clerk. All right, this brings us to item #2 on the consent agenda, setting forth zero tolerance for littering throughout Burke County. Again, this is an item that we've talked a lot about over the last, year or so or more. And certainly, if you're out and about and look around, you certainly see a lot of litter in our area. We've had a lot of concern around our routes going into the landfill, but certainly that should not be viewed as the only problem with trash, because it seems to be all over our county. So again, I hope you've had an opportunity to look at this resolution. Again, I'll invite Mr. Carswell to comment on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keep America Beautiful Foundation has put out a numerous number of articles to talk about littering all across the United States of America. And it identifies that 19.9% of litter comes from unsecured items that are on back of vehicles and trucks that are going to convenience sites. And it also identifies that 76% of litter on our roadways comes from motorists and pedestrians. And they identify 4 causes of that. Is because some people are lazy and careless, and some people have lack of access to receptacles, like if somebody's walking in a park or some area like that, and there's no receptacles, they'll throw their trash on the grounds. If they happen to be at a service station, or even leaving McDonald's, if they don't have a receptacle there, they'll throw trash on the ground. Lenient law enforcement, there is general statutes, criminal statutes against littering in North Carolina, they're not adequate. As I sent something out this week, that there is new general statutes that are being presented, or updates to the current general statute that identifies not what I say littering. Littering is throwing something out the window of the vehicle or whatever when you're going down the highways, just as we've experienced over on Huffman Bridge Road there where Commissioner Abley lives. It was actually terrible. They picked up a lot of trash going over to our recycling center over there. So there's a lot of presence of litter in certain areas. And if there's litter there, people will continue to litter in those same places. I'm asking that we consider, and there are a number of counties across North Carolina are now considering a zero tolerance for litter in our county. We want to keep Burke County as beautiful as we can keep it, because it is a beautiful place to live, as we already know. I encourage, like I say, there's been some new amendments to General Statute 14399, which is the criminal law now for littering, to make it doesn't go far enough, and we need to actually accept a zero tolerance here in Burke County. We want to continue to encourage our local law enforcement in our municipalities, our North Carolina Highway Patrol and the North Carolina Motor Carrier Enforcement to issue citations. And I hope that 14399 will be addressed and that it can be changed to a class 1A misdemeanor, and that 1A misdemeanor will be at the discretion of a judge to whether there's incarceration, fines, and or community service. So one of the combination or all of those, and see if we can eradicate as much of littering as we can. Obviously, COVID-19 has played a part of this, because people are now going out to McDonald's and other places like that, and they're getting food to take home, and they eat it in their cars. And as they go up the highway, they'll just deposit their trash in joint cars to the front yard. So that means we just have to go out, and kind of keep as much clean. I do not believe, some people said, let's do litter sweep programs on the weekends. I just don't think it's fair to ask people to go out and pick up somebody else's trash up that they deposited on the highway. It looks like that's the only way we're going to get cleaned up, but that's just not a fair way to me for us to depend on somebody else to pick up somebody else's trash and shouldn't be on the highway anyway. So this is probably a real strong approach by asking if that law be changed, but I think that's what this resolution should do, is ask that we change 14399. I think, again, that we should ask our district attorneys to start prosecuting these cases. A few people will start paying some hefty fines. I'm sure that would help or probably make some people think again that they shouldn't be littering on the highways and byways of Burke County. We just need, not only Burke County, we just need to clean North Carolina back up. It was a beautiful state, and I'd like to see it get back to that. I've spoken too long on this, Mr. Chairman, but it is a passion with me.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. You've heard this information. Any questions or comments about this resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enhance Commissioner Carswell's comments a little bit. One of the things that people don't remember is that to some of us, this trash is expensive. To farmers and other people who might get off the road or whatever, when there's beer bottles, alcoholic bottles, glass, tin cans thrown into the side of the road. For example, my experience myself, if you're bush hogging and you cut a hole in your tire, to replace the tire on my big tractor is over $1,000. I have done it one time from glass, from a beer bottle. Also, we can take a habit after the truck drivers or truck operators of the world. They're some of the cleanest, neatest people in the world, and we can't drive 5 miles till we can put the trash in our own containers. And those people drive 600-700 miles a day, 500 to 700. Some of them never stop. They got 2 drivers on board, but they have their own trash containment container in their truck, and they clean it out when they stop to eat or take a break or whatever. But I'm tickled to death. This is on the our docket for today. I know it's ugly, but it certainly can be painful and expensive if you have farmland, or even if you're using your lawnmower mowing your lot close to the road. If it's something thrown out there that you don't see, you can throw an object, or either you can end up with a flat tire on a lawnmower. So it is also a safety thing for people. Please don't throw your trash out on public roads or public property. I'm happy it's on there.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Anybody else on this item? I always have lots of fun when I don't see an item, and instead of picking up one piece, I wind up picking up 1,000 pieces when I hit it with the lawnmower. Makes it extra fun.
Mm.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain approval for this to move forward on our agenda. Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes,
Taylor,
Absolutely.
and I vote yes as well. That'll be 5-0, Madam Clerk. Brings us to item number 3, clerk's appointment to the Library Board of Trustees. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to appoint Tiffany Cooper to the Library Board of Trustees for seat number 5, which is for a Valdez resident, for the remainder of a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2023.
All right, thank you. Any question for the clerk on this matter? Hearing none, for consensus to leave this on our consent agenda, Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
yes,
Taylor,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That'll be 5-0, Madam Clerk. All right, next item is community development accepting a 1780 trail easement, and this will be presented by Shane Prisby. Shane, you out there?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Thank you very much. As a part of the 1780 subdivision, Crescent Resources dedicated a trail easement for the Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trail. Crescent wished to have the county and future 1780 Property Owners Association execute a trail easement agreement. While the trail easement is shown on the filed plat, the agreement between the POA and the county was never executed, leaving the easement incomplete. The Community Development Department has been working with the 1780 POA to complete the trail easement. The POA voted to move forward with the trail easement agreement at their annual meeting in December.
All right, thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane on this item? Hearing none, for consensus to leave this item on the consent agenda, Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes, sir.
Carswell,
yes,
Taylor,
Yes.
I vote yes. That'd be 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Our next item. I'm coming to it. Air Marshal's request for approval of loan agreement between the Home Trust Bank and the Ickard Township Fire Rescue Incorporated. Mike, you out there?
Mr. Chairman, Robert Bishop is going to handle this item for Mike.
Okay. Afternoon, Robert.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Carry on.
Yeah, we're just looking at a request for approval of loan agreement between Home Trust Bank and Ickard Township Fire Rescue. I do have Brandon Lingerfeld, the fire chief, and the president of the board. They're in the same room here if anybody would have any questions.
All right. All right. Thank you. Any questions on this item, gentlemen? You've had a chance to review it. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, Maynard, a couple questions, if I may, right quick. I asked before, and I just wondered if anybody ever found out, is there recommendations of how many or how close fire stations should be to each other, or what's the golden rule for that you don't have overkill or more than you need?
I'll step out of the chair here and let the fire chief talk to you.
Good afternoon, folks. Hope everybody's well. Recommendation on fire stations to get full credit for your fire districts. That includes your apparatus location, your hydrant locations, would be 1.5 miles apart.
1.5 miles.
Yes, sir.
I looked up under Google. It had an excellent explanation on it. It did not use, it made it very clear, Mr. Lingerfeld, that you can't use, as a bird flies, you can't use 5 miles, which is what a lot of people do use. That was what I read off the internet. But it's road miles, and when you
Correct.
go around curves and around and intersections and across the creeks and everywhere you go, sometimes it can be 1 mile from your fire department, but 6 miles to get there. So it's hard to do that. And but I do want to say to you that I certainly appreciate you following protocol. You did have a public meeting on it, and all of them appeared to endorse this project. I did find out too that we're having trouble, a lot of people are having trouble getting volunteer fire departments. And is that a problem? And also I wanted to ask you, would this increase the tax rate in order to pay back for this facility?
I'll answer the last question first. No, we wouldn't be raising our fire tax at all to move this project in place. Our volunteer status right now is great. I've got 34 of the best volunteers in God ever created, and I've got 4 of of course, 4 of our folks are full-time folks, but force of 37, and continually getting some applications in, so we feel real good about that.
I wanted to apologize. I didn't know you were having a hearing. I would have a public hearing. I would have attended it, but again, I appreciate you taking the steps and doing protocol to do this. And I think that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments on this item? Hearing none, for consensus to leave this on the consent agenda, Commissioner Abel,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes,
Taylor,
Yes,
and I vote yes. That's 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this afternoon. This brings us to item number 6 on the consent agenda. Tax Department Tax Collection Report. Danny, you out there?
I am. Good afternoon, gentlemen. On property tax, this is for the period from July 1st of 2020 through February 28th of 2021. Property tax, we are at 99.12% collected. This is compared to the budget. Motor vehicle, we're at 75.74%. The 2 of those combined against budget is 96.92%. Delinquent taxes, we're at 92.44%. And late list penalties, we're at 117.84% collected. Property taxes compared to the levy just for property tax, no motor vehicles, we are at 96.24% collected.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any questions for Danny on this report? Hearing none, for consensus to leave this item on the consent agenda, Mr. Abel,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Carswell,
yes,
Taylor,
yes,
I vote yes. That's 5-0. Next item on the consent agenda is the tax department again, the released refund report for February 2021. Danny?
Yes, sir. The releases on the report are $5,528.87. We rebilled $1,763.52, which give us a net release of $3,765.35. We had $73.98 in refunds, and on the vehicle taxes, we had no refunds reported.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any questions for Danny on this report? All right, hearing none for consent, leave this item on the consent agenda. Commissioner Abler,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
I vote yes, 5-0. And again, from Danny at the tax department, tax foreclosure report, progress through December 2020. Danny?
Yes, this is the progress. As I will know that Canaan Law is who we appointed as the tax attorney for foreclosure procedures. So just as to give you a sort of an update on everything, of course, the tax collection process begins with the notices mailed in July, and taxpayers typically have from July 1st to September 1st to pay early and take advantage of the discounts. Taxes become due on September 1st. They do not become delinquent until after January the 5th of the following year. This gives taxpayers from the beginning of July until January 5th each year to pay their taxes and avoid interest. In January, delinquent notices are mailed for the current year delinquent taxes, along with any prior year delinquent taxes for real and personal property. This notice gives taxpayers until the end of February to pay. Taxpayers who have not paid these delinquent taxes will be advertised in the local newspaper, and that is scheduled for not Sunday, but Sunday a week. Once delinquent, after January 5th, tax begin using enforced collection procedures as allowed by North Carolina General Statute. These procedures include wage garnishment, bank attachment, debt set-off, and foreclosure. Foreclosure is used as last resort. Prior to submitting the property to the attorney for foreclosure, staff sends a pre-foreclosure letter by certified mail. This warns the taxpayer of the pending action. This letter also notifies the taxpayer costs can add up to several $1,000s in addition to the taxes. From this letter, some taxpayers will pay the bill, some will begin making payments, and others will just do nothing. In January 2019, tax office began sending delinquent taxpayer accounts to Canaan Law in Asheville for foreclosure action. Before beginning the foreclosure process, Canaan gives the taxpayer one additional chance to pay. This begins with what we call as a demand letter. It's sent by certified mail to the taxpayer's last known address. And once again, taxpayers have three options there. They can pay the bill in full, and then no further action is taken. They can arrange a payment arrangement, which they refer to as a forbearance agreement. This is a special payment arrangement between the attorney and the taxpayer, giving them usually 4 to 6 months to pay the bill. Failure to comply with this agreement nullifies the agreement, and the foreclosure process can begin, or they can do nothing and let the foreclosure process begin. Canaan and tax office staff communicate several times a week. Canaan also provides monthly status reports for accounts that they have. Included in this packet is the December 2020 report. To understand the column headers in this report and progress, I've also included a letter from Richard Canaan. From this information, one can see that foreclosure process is very involved and time consuming. This process has, like many others, been affected due to COVID-19. To see how the foreclosure process has been impacted, review the included email from Richard Canaan. Even with the delays caused by COVID-19, Canaan has continued to collect from for Burke County. The chart below shows the status of the parcels submitted and taxes collected through December 21, 2020. There's several things on here. The shows the total number of parcels that we've referred is 672. The number of closed parcels, in other words, those have been paid, is 363. Going down there, the part that you're probably really interested in is how much have we collected, and that's 616,696.78. And I've given you sort of 4 different reporting periods there, and the goal is to try to get this on a quarterly report. I would recommend that all of you just read over the letters from Richard and the emails. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have now.
Thank you, Danny. I hope you've had a chance to look over this interesting information. Any questions for Danny on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question, but believe it or not, through the information Kay was scrolling down, it was on there. The question was going to be, what was the results of the forbearance option that they've been given? And I believe if you look at that, it's been there for a couple of years, but so far this year, I believe it was 32. And then last year is 43, 46. I think that's a nice offering on the behalf of Burke County, and I appreciate that knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Danny. For consensus to leave this on the consent agenda, then Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Bowie,
Yes.
Carswell,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
I vote yes. It'll be 5-0, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. This brings us to item 9 in the consent agenda. Western Piedmont Community College, approval of letter of funding commitment for trades building. And good afternoon, Sandy.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us today. I hope everyone's doing well. I wanted to give a little background on our building construction program. And Kay, it won't let me share my screen. So if you don't mind doing the PowerPoint, I will follow along there.
I unshared my screen, so you can go ahead.
It still gives me the error that the host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, well, I'll go back.
You have to love technology.
Try it now.
Okay. There we go. Can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just a little history on our building construction technology program is really originally on the main campus in Building J, which was a 9,145 square foot classroom and lab building. But the building was also shared with surveying, industrial systems, computer, mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering. So a lot of stuff happening in that one building. Almost 10 years ago, the program was moved to the K building with horticulture and sustainable agriculture, but we still needed an open space for construction lab areas for the trades. We utilized one of the barns that was part of the parcel of land donated to the college by Broughton Hospital. And this barn was built in 1942 and is 4,760 square feet. The coordinator led the way in transforming this into a workable solution. However, it's not optimal, having very little insulation. Open space is not conducive really to learning or teaching the different trades that we have. There's no technology infrastructure in this building and no restrooms in this building. It has worked for us for the last few years, but again, it's just not really optimal with the way this is, being a barn that was built in 1942. So with the sale of this land to Homes Urban for the 240 apartment complex, the college must look for alternatives for this program, and now is the time to improve, modernize, and expand our program of offerings. It is the right time as well for the community, we feel. The facility we will build is estimated to be built over 2 phases, with the first 20,000 square feet to include labs and classrooms in the same facility, meeting space for partners and tours, support areas for the program at a cost of approximately $6 million. Other funding sources for this original first phase will be the remaining funds from the NC Connect bonds, the sale of the land that has a closing date estimated to be later this week, it may be early next week, grants, and then county support. Phase 2 will consist of an additional 15,000 square feet of lab areas for building modular homes that will provide real-world learning for students for an estimated cost of $4 million. Funding for that will include additional grants that we're pursuing, state equipment funding, and capital campaigns. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Welch and let him talk a little bit about the need for this program and the different trades and the livable wages that our students can enjoy once they graduate.
Thank you, Sandy, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. The next slide there shows the number of people that are needed, workers per year. I will tell you, if you look at the HVAC number there of 10 per year, I think that's pretty underestimated, but based on the published ads that we're seeing, and keep in mind that many of these fields are hired not through published ads, but word of mouth. But the parentheses numbers that you see there, 25, 0, 0, 6, and 3, that's the numbers of these workers that are being turned out presently between us and CVCC combined. So we are turning out way fewer workers than we need. There's a critical need. Anecdotally, I've talked to 2 or 3 different folks in the past month who one decided not to even try to build a house in Burke County. They bought an existing house because they couldn't get the construction on time. They couldn't get a good timeline from a contractor. And so this really shows the need. Sandy, you can jump to the next slide there. But not just do we have a great need, we also have good wages for these workers. These are the average wages for each of these fields, and that's average. So generally folks start a little bit less than this, and then they move to this point. Someone who is good, works hard, is going to do better than this. But if you look at this, all of these fields are above the average wage that I found for Burke County. And then if you think about the livable wage in our area for 2 adults who are working with 1 child, it's $15.42. So they're all above the livable wage. They're all above the average rate wage in the county. So turning out workers for this area in the region benefits our county, benefits the area that we need. And also, as we all know, we're dealing with a housing shortage, and this will indirectly help deal with that. The pictures on the side here give you a little bit of an example of what something like this may look like. The bottom one is just a rough picture. I will say to you that's not my favorite, but I wanted to give you a picture of a modern structure because we know that we've got to have a state-of-the-art facility that will help us recruit people into this field. And then we are actually rebuilding our curriculum. We'll be incorporating non-credit and credit, short-term certificates, and full associate degrees as we bring people in. What we see is that a lot of our short-term training will attract people from the whole region to our area so that we'll have people coming in to spend the day or maybe 3 or 4 days to do some of the training that we will offer. And all of that will benefit our county in the short term and also the long term as we build a skilled workforce to really meet the housing shortage, industry needs, et cetera, across the county. So with the commitments that Sandy has already mentioned, you can jump to the next slide there, Sandy. What we're asking for is a letter of a commitment for $1 million. We are well into the application process for Golden Leaf and the county support, our NC Connect bonds, and showing where we are makes this a strong application there. And we hope to hear positive news from them at the end of this month. And that's what we're pushing for. So Very short, very sweet. Really appreciate the county's support for our college. And just on a personal note, want to say that my family and myself have been really excited to move to the area. We've been here now going on 8 months, and really excited to see the pandemic hopefully easing off and an opportunity to get out. So really just a beautiful area, great people, and we've enjoyed being here. So just wanted to put that in there for a little bit on the personal note. So I'll stop there, and I'll say that Sandy can answer any hard questions you might have.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Welch. Thank you, Sandy. Any questions for Sandy or Dr. Welch?
Mr. Chairman, I have two. The first one is, we talk about these courses and how long will they run? Will they be a 1-year course, 2 years, 3 years, or depending on which course you take?
Maynard, what we actually see doing there is developing a series of short-term, and when I say short-term, we could have classes that are only a day or two for a specific skill, and then we'll have classes that go 4 to 8 weeks and be able to earn credentials or certificate, like you would see for forklift training, for example. So it may be focused on just framing. Then they take those certificates. If they want a longer term, they'll combine that to earn a diploma, which is usually a year. And then they can add to that an associate degree, which would be 2 years. So there'll be students who come in short, and then there'll be some who want to advance their skills, or maybe they want to pick up an overview who'll be doing the associate degree. So it's a little bit of all of that. And one thing that we absolutely see in this is an entrepreneurial component. Because we hope to get these folks started and getting out and being able to start their own businesses and growing businesses, their own business in our county.
My second question has to do with competition. Any other county, community college presently offering this or planning to, that would maybe hurt your efforts if they did?
The colleges around us offer little pieces. So if that number I showed you earlier was the number of folks being turned out between us and CVCC. Caldwell also does a little bit, but they do not have the construction carpentry side. We are coordinating with them. Then when we look to McDowell and Isothermal to the other side of us, their numbers are extremely small. None of these colleges are planning on upgrading their programs or building this. That's why we're calling it a regional trade center. We're looking to partner with them, provide resources to help them if they do have a program. But our idea is that we would be a support structure and a resource for the entire region. So the competition around this is fairly small right now.
In our discussion earlier, Joel, we talked a little bit about and how hard it was to get repair work done, but especially surveying. I've been trying to find surveyors for about 3 months, and they're all booked so far out, they're not really interested. So it is a problem, and I'm delighted to see that we're going to be offering it. Wayne will remember, and well, the other commissioners too, during their tenure, we have worked well with the community college and offering and training for people coming into town. So I think it's a step further that will enhance people and tradesmen and women that can certainly make a healthy living in Burke County.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any other questions, comments on this item? Okay, again, thank you, Dr. Welch and Sandy. With that, I'll entertain a consensus on this item to remain on the consent agenda. Commissioner Abel?
Yes.
Bowie?
Absolutely.
Carswell?
Definitely.
Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And I as well, so that'll be 5-0. Again, thanks, Dr. Welch and Sandy, for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, this brings us to items for decision. First item comes from Community Development, award Linville Dam Boardwalk Design Contract, and this will be presented again by Shane Prisby. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the July 2020 regular meeting, the Board of Commissioners approved the withdrawal of the Linville Dam Boardwalk project from the STBGDA grant program and to repurpose the allocated match for the design, engineering, construction of the project. Community Development Department submitted a request for qualifications for design engineering firms and received 4 strong submittals. Working with representatives from Duke Energy, the department ranked the firms, and the submission from the team of Mattern and Craig and Mosaic Civic Studios was scored the highest. We received an initial budget and scope from Mattern and Craig, which was about 20% over our budget, which is at $100,000, which was the allocated match. And we're working with the consulting firm to reduce the scope to come in line with the budget that we have. And we're anticipating that this process and the negotiations will be wrapped up and ready to go by the regular board meeting in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I did not have a question, but I see a question right quick. County Manager, I reckon under your motion, you have the amount, you have 3 X's and 2 in the motion. That is $999,999.99. That X on the first part needs to come off. Excuse me, I'll strike the word needs. We would be in order, if we're not gonna pass it, if it goes over 90,000, we need to drop one of those X's, or else you are agreeing to $999,999.99.
Commissioner Taylor, the max amount that we have for the project that you all agreed for is 100,000, and that is the absolute maximum for the project. So I was hoping to be able to fill those numbers in with official numbers and not the X's by this meeting, but we were able to have our discussion on the scope yesterday. So I was not able to get it updated in time for this meeting.
But you can do that by the time we vote on 2 weeks from now, correct?
That is correct.
Good, okay.
Any other question on this matter? Hearing none, for consensus to leave this on the decision agenda. Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Bowie?
Yes.
Carswell?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes, I'm assuming with correction.
Yes, sir. That'll be complete at that time and should be ready for a complete answer. And I vote yes as well. Be 5-0, Madam Clerk. Thank you guys for presenting that.
Thank you very much.
This brings us to the second item on our decision agenda. This comes from the sheriff dealing with detention officers recruitment and detention. Good afternoon, Sheriff.
Good afternoon, commissioners and county staff. With the chairman's permission, I would like to acknowledge and thank all the people who sit down together to develop a proposed solution to enable us to hire and retain our jail staff. Those people included the county commissioner's chair and vice chair, the county manager, the county finance director, the HR director, and some of her staff, as well as the sheriff's office command staff. Result of our collaboration is what you have before you this afternoon. But before I proceed, please allow me to acknowledge the dedicated jail staff who's been giving 110% on their scheduled work days, who come in on their days off to fill in gaps, and who come in early and or work late in service to our citizens. We say thank you and we appreciate you so much. Again, thank you for this opportunity. And those 4 requests that I have before you are what we sat down and came together as a group. And they included, number 1 was the minimum salary increase increase the minimum salary for new hires and existing non-sworn detention officers, detention corporals, detention sergeants, and detention lieutenants by 5%. That would be 1 grade. And that would become effective on pay period April 3rd, 2021. Item 2 deals with a retention bonus, and it provides an annual retention bonus of $600 to newly hired non-sworn detention officers and existing non-sworn detention officers upon the successful completion of their first year of service. For the new hires, and upon successful completion of 1 year of service for people that's already there. That would begin April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. The detention officer would also be eligible for a subsequent retention bonus in the amount of $1,200 upon the successful completion of their second year of service as a detention officer on April 1st, 2023 for the currently employed detention officers. And this program will be effective through March 31st, 2022, contingent upon budget approval each year. The third item is the part-time detention positions, and just requesting to reinstate the previously approved 15 part-time detention officer positions. These positions are non-benefited positions. And then lastly, we would ask that you approve the creation of a staff recruitment and development specialist position that would report directly to the Burke County Human Resources Director and be assigned to work directly with the Sheriff Jail Administration to aid in the effective and timely recruitment and onboarding of detention officers. Once the jail is adequately staffed, the position would be utilized through the county, throughout the county, to assist with effective recruitment and retention of other positions, again, throughout the county. This fiscal year, the cost of these items would be funded through lap salaries from the jail. Funding for future years would be through the regular budgetary process.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. And I want to, at this point, just comment and thank the Sheriff and Rhonda and her folks and everybody that was involved as we continued to talk about and discuss what we could do to get our jail staffed. We've been working, as you know, over a year, and just with all the things that are going on in the detention arena, really nationally, as well as COVID, and then we got neighbors who have built jails and they're looking for folks. We just did not feel that one single answer was going to address and help us solve this problem. And so I want to commend the group for being willing to kind of think out of the box just a little bit and be willing to work together to try to address where we are and to try to get, more importantly, to try to get where we need to be so that we can fully staff the jail and begin fully opening our facility. So with that, I'll open the floor for any questions on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little perplexed that we are doing again increases for one department during the year. We are throwing more and more money, and I just wonder, it's just like the 4 staff recruitment position, and I don't know what that costs you annually, but I don't know how many we're looking for. You give us the cost, we don't have the total number. How many retention people do we have that says estimated 43,900 after completion of 1 year, 87 after? How many is that divided between?
You're talking about the item number 2, the retention bonus. Is that
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, that relates to the effective, whether or not we can keep folks. that long. And that's, of course, one of the challenges we've had. The sheriff, has had quite a turnover. We've hired some folks, but they quickly leave. And so this is an effort to try to keep those good officers with us. Again, it's just another method to try to stabilize the workforce. And maybe Rhonda, I don't know if Rhonda's on the call. Maybe the sheriff can answer that question in terms of how many there are at this point.
Well, at this point, we only have 49 field positions. So that would be, you could just multiply 49 by 600. Cost you $29,400 the first year rather than $43,900 because of the number of staff. I'm assuming that the finance department included the $600 times fully staffed. Right now we have 19 vacancies. So if we were fully staffed, that number should cover a fully staffed jail, $43,900 with the benefits that you have to pay in addition to that. The next year would be $87,750 because they would be getting $1,200. That again would be fully staffed positions. Again, we've got 49 now. We're 19 vacancies.
Well, do we do this? I don't know if anybody's on board to answer the question. Do we do this for any other department?
I think I can answer that. We haven't, Commissioner Taylor, and that's where I'm saying here we're really stepping outside the box because we've just simply not been successful at getting folks to staff our jail.
Well, let me summarize a couple things. And Sheriff Whiston, this has nothing to do with you, except that you happen to be the sheriff at the point. But we are continuing to isolate and treat one department with. I think we've given the sheriff's department the last year and a half or so 4 raises. And we're doing it during mid-year instead of during the budget year. And it puts me in a difficult position because one department ends up with over a period of 12 months, 18 months, 20-30% raises, and the rest end up with cost of living raises. And this is one of those things that is not this week and this next week's deal. His proposal here is to go be ongoing, to have bonuses paid for those who stay. And the other question, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you at this moment, is that the 4 staff recruitment positions, one good staff recruitment person ought to be able to find 10 people a week if they're out there.
Well, let me interrupt you there, Maynard. That's not meant to be 4. That was just item number 4. There's only 1 position. That may be confusing, but those numbers you see there, those are really meant to be item numbers. Those are not quantity numbers.
I got you. And but the I don't know, folks. I think we got a big problem, bigger problem than just the jail. And you can't change it. The sheriff can't change it. The mood of the people right now, where people who used to love to be a sheriff or a deputy or work for the sheriff. The attitude of the world is, it's almost like they're in a war zone every day. And because of the unhappiness of that situation, people who used to want to be a sheriff don't want to be a sheriff anymore. And I understand that side of the equation. but you're asking me to vote in things that boards 5 years, 10 years down the road is going to have to honor. And I don't think we should do that. If we're going to do that, we need to have parameters. This needs a little more finesse, if you will. I don't want to put a board 10 years down the road in a bind doing a budget because there aren't dollars and raises and bonuses that this board did. And I guess this is one of those items that takes more than 5 minutes to decide. It would have been nice to have a work session on this, on these projects alone, Mr. Chairman, in my estimation. But as it stands right like it is right now, there needs to be some total cost information, what that bonus yearly thing, and when you move along, is that going to increase instead of stay the same? So by the time you get up fully staffed, what will this motion we're looking at today cost Burke County taxpayers is the question.
And my understanding is it shows that they're in that box. That's fully staffed. And when you talk about the retention bonus, the motion is specifically only if you agree to that budget approval each year. So I don't think you would be tying the hands of future boards because you will be voting on this future boards annually. So I don't think you tie them to that. And Mr. Commissioner, I think that it's just the what the market will bear now. The difficulty, it's not Burke County. This is a regional, statewide, and national problem that we were discussing. And you are correct in that the draw for detention officers primarily, not so much with local law enforcement officers, but detention officers is where everyone is struggling. I think Catawba County now has been coming up on 1.5 years trying to get their people hired, and they've not had that done yet. So everybody's struggling, and we really can't continue to, we've hired 32 since January 1st of last year, and we've lost 34. So you can't continue at that rate and not.
Do you do an exit?
Yes,
employee exit. What is the number one reason they leave?
I can tell you that the number one reason they've told me is pay. Let me pull it up right here to make sure. What was the second one?
Pay, staffing, and absenteeism.
Yeah, pay, staffing, and absenteeism. In other words, the pay, obviously, that everybody understands that one. Staffing is because we've been understaffed, is that there's just not enough people that they do not have to work overtime. And that's why I wanted to thank them for what they've been doing. They're having to stay over the shift. They're having to come in early. They have to come in on the days off and just to fill in those gaps. The third one is absenteeism. And the problem is with that kind of workload, many of them just are not coming in on their regular days. So that's why I really wanted to thank the staff for the ones that's coming in. They are truly giving 110%. And I just think that, and I think Commissioner Abley said it last month, that we really need to fix this problem. We just cannot continue going at it as we have. We need to fix it. And I was so appreciative of HR sitting down with us. We've been working with Rhonda directly, and this one staff recruitment position on how to best utilize that. We feel like we can do better at recruitment and retention. If we get this package, we can move forward for the county.
Well, you anticipated my next question, and you know, if the county agrees to all this additional money, what's the end results? And the end results is, if they're not happy for $600, they're not going to be, you know, if they're not happy now, $600 ain't going to make the difference. I don't know what the answer is either, since a lot of counties are experiencing the same thing, that they can't fill these positions. And it just becomes an effort of spinning your wheels. So they get I don't see that resolving your problem is what I'm trying to say. And of course, I don't have expertise in your field, but I don't believe $600 a year is going to make the difference of whether I like or dislike my job. Again, we just, do we have a total figure altogether of what this motion will increase your budget for this year?
Well, nothing for this year because we're going to use lapse money next year.
You have enough lapse money to do all 4 of these steps.
Well, the retention bonus would not come into effect for a full year. So that wouldn't have any impact. The 5% would start in April. And we have enough lapse money to do the 5%. And then HR will be hiring the staff recruitment position. That would not come from the jail monies. So yes, it would not cost any additional funding than we already have for this fiscal year.
So the retention bonus will go to how many people? How many is in that? What number's in that?
It'll be.
Did you say 49?
That's how many we got right now.
61 would be eligible out of the 68 positions.
And Greg is saying we'd have 61 eligible people when we get fully staffed that are non-sworn officers. So 61 people when we get fully staffed would be eligible for that $600 a year from April. And then they would be eligible for $1,200 2 years from April. And that's we talked about different ways to do that. And that was something that HR recommended, retention bonuses rather than recruiting bonuses. And that gives some incentive that, hey, if I stay a year, I'm gonna get that $600 check. And if I stay 2 years, I get a $1,200 check. And we agreed that was, we were looking at recruiting bonuses, and HR felt like we should focus on retention bonuses. So that's where we got that number.
So in 10 years, he'll get a 6,000.
No, I mean, the commissioners will look at it each year to determine if you're going to continue to get retention bonuses.
Well, according to what you just said, you add 6 years every year they're there, right? That's the theory.
No, you just, it's year one, you get 600, year two, 1,200. And as far as the motion, that you don't get anything beyond that.
Any other questions?
I'll rest a second, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just to expound on what Maynard said, it sounds like to me that maybe 5% is not enough. Maybe we need to go 10%.
That's what I asked for originally.
Well, you know, when we began all this discussion, you know, we kind of started out with, well, we'd like, you know, an increase. We'd like hiring bonuses, all this. And, you know, it just, I felt like became clear that one, you know, one piece of this just won't solve our problem. I think Maynard did say this in his, you know, comments a minute ago. $600 isn't going to solve the problem. So, you know, I think it's going to take a multiple approach. And we did discuss, you know, how, you know, where are we in terms of our neighbors? And, you know, I think we're at a point we do need a little edge. And Rhonda can address this. I think 5% may today give us a tiny bit of an edge, maybe an edge that will help us be competitive against our neighbors who are also looking for detention officers. So, you know, I think we've got to be attractive in a lot of different ways. And Rhonda, you want to comment on any of that?
Sure, I'll be glad to. And we are in the middle of looking at all of our salaries for the pay study. And we always keep an eye on these positions that we determine that are hard to recruit. And detention officers is at the top of the list. Right now, that turnover rate is quite high. It's above 40% right now. And so to answer Commissioner Taylor's question, to treat another group differently, when you've got turnover in that level of 40% and you're staffing a jail, then that's why we came at this as a group to try to come up with some outside of the box thinking, to try to put them in a position to where they can recruit, and not only recruit, but retain those folks, because the numbers show that we're able to get the people in the door. We've just not been able to keep them. And that was my recommendation, to have a retention bonus instead of a recruiting bonus, because we have been able to get people up and hired. It's just that we're not able to keep them. And so that was why we suggested a retention bonus. And as far as the salaries go, with our neighbors, the leader right now is Lincoln County. And Lincoln County is around $37,000 for a starting rate for a detention officer. And so our practice historically, when we're looking at these, is we're taking the average of these areas, and in the discussions with the group, and like with the sheriff's office, the chairman, vice chair, county manager, and deputy county manager, finance director, we had the discussion about letting our group have the edge, but didn't know if we actually wanted to be the leader in that area as far as salaries go.
Rhonda, could you, what is the retention rate in Lincoln County? I'd be curious to, since they're the leader, how their retention rate is.
I called them, Commissioner Abley, and talked with them. I think their facility is much smaller than ours. And right now they don't have any openings. So they are full. Well, that was a couple of weeks ago that I called, but when I called, they were fully staffed at that time. And I think they had one part-time employee, but in talking with them, I don't think their facility is the size of ours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, a couple other statements here that this board needs to think about. I think, and I don't have the information before me. I am going to quote from some memory, and I brought this up at our last year's budget meeting. Cost of running Burke County government has almost doubled in the last 5 or 6 years. And most of it has come from employee raises, employee benefits, and increase in salaries. And if it continues to go the way it's going, it will double faster than it did the last 5 or 6 years. And that's the reason I am concerned that we continue, I'm going to call it abuse our own budget by continuing to add items and people during the year from the budget. I do recognize and acknowledge that sheriff departments across the land do have a problem. They do have a problem getting people to join, but I go back to my earlier statements. I'm not sure that we can handle this. There's not enough money, in other words, it is the best way to say it. There's not enough money to solve hiring people to do something they don't want to do or they get unhappy doing. And I think it needs some sessions and deep thinking and to resolve some of this stuff. It's just, we all think that more money is the problem behind every issue, and it is not necessarily the case. But if I'm just looking at these numbers and rolling off the top of my head, we just added about $250,000 to next year's budget to honor this. And it may be more than that if counting additional employees. So I needed a lot more time to look at this, and I've had in the last 2 days, but it's just it's sending to me a wrong signal. And of course, the burden is on the taxpayer, and everybody thinks if you're spending taxpayers' money, you're not spending money. But I can tell you with authority that yes, we are. And I'll rest again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Other questions, comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask the sheriff. I've talked to a number of county commissioners across the state, and obviously all jails are having the same problem, just like you're having, recruiting and retention. But one particular commissioner, I talked to Gerald Kivett this week in Sampson, they're bringing in about $2.5 million in their jail. If we find the formula to try to help retention, actually hiring and retention, if your exit interviews are saving money, it's the #1 problem. And if we decide to go this route and retain, are we going to be guaranteed that we open that jail up like we said we wanted to do early on and put inmates in that jail so we can start bringing in money like other counties are? What I'd like to do, if we bring in money, at whatever point or whatever amount it comes to, maybe 80% it comes back into the general fund and 20% comes back to you, Sheriff, for retention, training, even bonuses, or even raising pay for some of those people. But to get to that point to where we can open that jail up, put people in it and make that money, I hope we have your support in doing that. If we can get us back up to that level of 60, whatever it was, people that we need to run the jail. Again, I'll reiterate, as the mayor said, money doesn't buy everything, but if in your exit interviews, if pay is a problem, maybe this 5% is not enough to start hiring and retaining. I just wanted to make a couple points on that.
Yeah, and the reason that I recommended 10%, we were looking at, and I know some jails do this, some sheriffs have run into this problem, and they ended up paying their detention officers the same as sworn officers without the benefits. And that's significant. Sworn officers have cars, they've got different retirement, but they wanted to be able to pay them equally to solve their issues. Some sheriffs have actually started swearing detention officers. We're not recommending that, where they can go from any department throughout the sheriff's office organization laterally. So that's an issue. Obviously, we do want to bring in some revenue for the county. What we will need to look at is how many Burke County inmates we'll end up with. And I think what will happen is after COVID, the numbers will increase significantly. But our goal is to rent beds and bring in revenue for the county.
And I think if we did do that, that would give us a revenue flow to where we could turn that money back, to you, so that it would help in retention and pay, whatever we need to look at. But we've got to get a revenue stream to start with. But to get that revenue stream, obviously, we've got to give you enough people, to run the jail.
And like I've said before, we just want to be able to run the jail safely for both the staff and the inmates. And so you have to have sufficient staff to do that. And I would love for the commissioners to come one day and just work with us a little while in the jail just to see. It's very labor intensive, more than you think it is. It's the double, having 2 levels of cells under one roof is great. That's ideal, but there's still a lot of walking. And what happens is it's increasing, it's double the walking for what we would do if we were fully staffed, because staff are having to actually almost run from block to block. And that's what's hurting. Money is number one, but lack of staffing is number 2. They said, you are killing us. We just cannot walk these amount of distance we have to walk. And some are walking between 8 and 10 miles a day. So when you walk 8 or 10 miles a day on concrete, and you've got steps to do that, that is really wearing them down. So we are excited about the opportunity to fully staff the jail, and that will help in multiple ways. And to address your issue, Commissioner Taylor, is once they are not pushed so hard, it won't be as hard of a job. If we're paying them, we're paying them well, and they're not having to work overtime and come in and work other people's shifts and work late, then it'll be a more job that they can enjoy more.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Do you allow, or is it worth your while to hire retirees for those positions? Does that work? Can that be part of the solution is the question?
Who are you asking that, Commissioner?
Well, I expect it'd be to you, Steve, since if
Yeah,
I talked to a couple people last couple of weeks who have been retired a couple of years, and they're tired and won't go back to work. Said, you know where there's a job? I said, yeah, there's thousands of them. There's a lot of people advertising for jobs. So I just wondered if somebody's in the mid 60 age, are they worth training, and could they do that job?
Yes, if someone's in fairly good physical shape, and we are very honest with them, because we've had people that go up there and they say, we didn't realize how labor intensive this is. But we tell them, you need to be able to walk 8 to 10 miles on concrete, and you need to be able to work 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15 hours a day. And if somebody, in their mid 60s, absolutely, they can do that job if they're in fairly good health. Retirees is difficult. We would love to have retirees. They've got the work ethic many times, and the ability to understand what's needed by different people. We like that maturity level. We like to hire older people, but the difficulty that we have with part-time staff is that about most jails are working overtime like we are, and they're getting time and a half. So it's hard to attract other detention officers from other facilities to work part-time at $15 an hour. All of them are making more than that when they're working, overtime at their own facility. But retirees is something we would definitely be interested in, and we have reached out to Department of Corrections to let them know we would love to have them to apply when they retire.
I don't guess there's a testing period for this anywhere, but you're sitting here just thinking off the top of your head, $50,000 a year, 5% pay increase, $2,500, $600 retainer pay. That's $3,100 a year, immediate increase in pay. But I think if I was your co-person or one of your suggestive staff, I'd probably want to have a sit down, half-day meeting, think class, and look at maybe a different approach. So that would make us a favorable hiring entity other than just money.
I really get a lot of angst, Sheriff, when you say you hired 32, 34's left. That still bothers me, and it will bother me from now on. Since January, you've hired 32 and 34 have gone. And let me go back to something you just said, which I appreciate you say, work ethic. I don't give a dang. Sheriff, you know, I stood 25 years on cement over there, okay? 25 years that I worked in there on cement. This is just a work ethic thing, I think. I think Rhonda might be able to validate that in some way, that this is work ethic. When somebody says, I don't want to walk, they don't want to walk around. They don't want to walk around, but that's part of the job, you know, and that's one of the excuses they're going to use when they go. And these are all excuses we're talking about. So if it takes money to get people in there, I guess that's what it's going to take to get people in there. This jail has got to start functioning at 100%. We've got to get the people in there. And this is just another tool that we're looking at here. And we've looked at so many tools over the last 4 years. It's hard to look at another program, you know, and here we are looking at another one. I want to support whatever it takes, but the jail has got to be in operation. We got to be. I don't want you to come to another meeting and say, well, I hired 32 and I lost 34. I just, God, that's just, some people look at that and say the sheriff ain't worth a hoot. You know, when you make a report like that, I don't want that to happen anymore. That's got to stop. We got to figure out why 32 out of 34. I know you terminated some, obviously, and then some quit. So we got, again, and I've said this way too many times, we got to find out what it takes to keep them, why they're leaving, what you can do about a work ethic, and I don't know what you do about a work ethic among people that are young in this world today, because it's just the flipping world that we live in. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Let me say one thing on behalf of Commissioner Carswell. One of the things that the major and I talked with Rhonda about yesterday was how to best utilize this recruitment staff person for HR. And one of the things was to let them work with these detention officers in the jail to determine who is enjoying the jail, and to get information from those people that's enjoying that type of work. Why do you like it? Have somebody they can talk with outside of supervisors, and to have this person reaching out to the people that when they are considering leaving, why are you leaving? What would it take to keep you here? Just to develop that rapport with the people. So that is one of the things that we've been talking about. And that's the reason why I wanted to start off by thanking the people that's been involved. We've got the commissioners involved, we got county finance involved, we got us involved, and feel like that, you know, this was the next program, Commissioner Carswell, that, like you say, we too want to move beyond struggling to hire and retain people and get the jail staffed up and be able to have people enjoy the job and not overwork them.
Steve, this is Scott. Quick question, and you may not have this number right in front of you, but I'd be interested to know what's been the average daily inmate population?
I got Greg here. 130, is that?
I just did the February report. It was 120.
120 for
It
February.
fluctuates. Right now, 113, 120, 127 is the highest we've had in the last 6 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Other question?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Steve one other question?
Okay.
Rhonda, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. If this is a question I shouldn't ask, you say technical foul. go away.
Okay.
Do you have friction among your staff in that jail?
You're asking me? I'll let Greg answer that.
I think the only way I could answer that, I suspect there's friction amongst every group of people that ever get together, so. They're human beings.
Okay, well, there's a second element somewhere, and I don't know what it is. But there's a second element for that kind of turnover, and I think if you go to any professional employee training and you've got high turnover and we've given them a raise 3 or 4 times and it doesn't solve it, then you look for the second issue. I don't know what it is, but if what you were requesting is paid for by a lapsed salary, you know, I can understand the request to do that, but I certainly would, for the second year, we need a whole lot more discussion before we do the budget. And we need, Mr. Chairman, this is just Maynard talking, but we need a couple hours on this issue alone for next year's budget. But to say much more, I wouldn't, but I think from what I am hearing is we need to uncover other subtle things that might be contributed to this turnover.
That's certainly something that we've talked a great deal about in our meetings and discussions, and I think we all agree that that's something that this staff recruitment position can help us with. It can give us another set of eyes that's you might see as more neutral. That's not in the jail. They're looking at it from a different point of view. And so we're hopeful that person can help us with that kind of information. What do they see that maybe, the person that's, knee deep in it every day just don't see, or, our new workforce don't look at things the same way that many of us do who've been around a while. And so this again might give us another set of eyes to see, what's this kind of a job really look like to our new workforce, and help us to understand how to better position those folks, or to position ourselves to retain folks that are coming into the jail.
Mr. Chairman, do I understand that position will report directly to Rhonda and be a part of her staff from now on?
That is correct. And, ideally, we hope that once we stabilize and get the jail fully staffed, that person would then be able to, this is not the first department that's been a challenge. We've had that challenge in DSS and other places, and we've used similar methods, just not quite to this degree. But this would then give us that person to work throughout the county in, staff recruitment and development.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, we want to be completely transparent. We're 100% in favor of this HR person coming in and speaking to the staff, and we want to learn too. I think with the maybe some younger people, they may not understand the value of working for the government, in that most private agencies now don't have retirement and healthcare benefits and things paid for. We lost 5 staff members to FedEx for not very much more money, and I'm understanding that's contract. And with a contract job, if they don't need that many drivers in the future, you'll be terminated or rifted, and you're without any kind of benefits. It's one of the things that we really try to share with the new people that we hire. and when you're young, you just don't think about retirement. You don't think about health insurance and the benefits of that. But there is some good things. And I think that this HR person under Rhonda can share that kind of information, maybe even better than us. And again, talk with the people, the staff that we already have, and in a way that maybe a supervisor would not get the same response from them. We are 100% in agreement of exit interviews. I would love to read an exit interview from everyone that leaves. So I think what I was most excited about coming together, all of us, and coming up with this plan has an input from everyone. And each one of these things that we've asked for has a purpose that hopefully can help us resolve the issue.
Well, if you wanted to end on a funny note, Mr. Chairman, maybe robots are the answer. No.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions, comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, can I share a little bit more information?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to share that in doing research during this period of time, one thing that, and Commissioner Carswell can speak to this probably more than I can, but looking back at what the Department of Public Safety did in North Carolina back in May of 2019 is not dissimilar from what we're proposing right now, as far as when they were trying to increase their hiring and retention at the prisons. And so they had to kind of step outside the box as well. They shifted their hiring from the prison staff to the HR folks. So it's not that we're in charge that this, you know, if the commissioners decide to move in this direction, not that we would be actually hiring these folks, that still would fall under the sheriff's authority, but that's what the state did back in 2019. I'm correct, right, Commissioner Carswell, on that? Yeah, okay, awesome. But I wanted to share that because they actually implemented, they had a retention bonus as well that they implemented. They looked at the pay, they looked at how they hire, they looked at the processes, where they recruit, where they advertise. So, you know, they had to throw a lot more resources and folks into the mix as well during that time period. And that was pre-COVID and all that. And looking back, I saw documentations back to 2000 that this has been a problem to recruit detention officers for quite some time. So I'm glad to be a part of this team to try to come up with a solution or a combination of things that we can try to get that jail fully staffed.
Rhonda, is this a problem? I mean, across North Carolina, I mean, I'm just sort of curious. I wonder how many jailers were short statewide. I mean, it looks to me like it's a problem across the state or the nation, really.
It's across the nation and certainly across the state as well. In calling the different folks, and I really learned a lot by talking to a lot of these folks, like at Catawba County. I've spoken with people at Wilkes and just different counties, and you learn a lot. And we're all in this together. And the thing is we're all in our region trying to fight for the same people to come work for us. And so, but that's why it's been a pleasure to be part of this bigger, larger team to try to come up with different ways that we can get folks in there and you know, hopefully they'll stay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the sheriff one more question?
Sure.
Steve, would you have any heartburn if I know you get a lot of training and everything from the Sheriff's Association, but what if there was, and Rhonda can help me on this one also, what if there was supervisory training programs that would address, because the workforce is different today, which I think we will all agree, and there's new training programs out there. Would you be okay with your supervisors attending additional supervisory training to address the new workforce?
Yes, and let me say this, Greg and I are both on the North Carolina Jail Training and Standards, or Jail Administrators Association. That is one issue that we have been struggling with ever since I've been sheriff, and I know Greg's experienced it too. We need to create more training for detention staff. There is insufficient training for detention staff, and I think that's an excellent idea. The difficulty is, and this is what's, I think, difficult to understand unless you're there, is having the staff to be able to do without supervisors is difficult. We have 5 detention officers in jail certification school now, and it's caused a difficulty being able to operate jail just with 5 gone. Once you get staffed up, if we get staffed up and to provide that type of training, I think you're only going to enhance the jobs at the jail. That is our goal, without a doubt, is to provide more training with every detention officer, and especially supervisor training. We've talked specifically about that. I think it's a great idea. We are struggling though with, Greg, did you say how many we got to have in our next 2 jail schools?
We have 5 currently enrolled. That leaves a balance of 15 currently that still need to be trained, for a total of 20. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, just kind of put it in perspective, we have 56 true detention positions. That's the 4 shifts with 14 on a shift, 56. Out of that 56, we have 37 currently filled. And of those 37, more than 50% are not trained. We have 20 individuals out of 37 that have received no formal training, some of them serving since breakfast. That 17 that are trained, that includes all the supervisors. It puts it in to me, that just puts it in true perspective. And then now those supervisors can't be supervisors because they've got to be on the floor doing what a detention officer should be doing. Maybe that, I hope that sharing that with you kind of sheds a little light on it as well.
And we've talked about that. One of the things that worries us, and we talked about this Sheriff's Association Professionalism Committee that I served on, is we talked about having detention officers trained before you put them to work, and all the sheriffs just said there's no way that we could do that. We have deputies that have 6 months of training before they're ever turned loose on their own, the sworn officers. These officers go up there, and how long is the in-service training for, Greg?
Well, the in-service is a total of 16 hours for a year. And when we get a new hire, by the time we clean up the admin and the HR stuff, which takes about 2 days, they're on a shift. So 48 hours later, they're under somebody's skirt tail on a shift.
And then we've got a year to get them through jail certification school, the 4-week school. And you struggle to do that because we don't have sufficient staffing to send them to school. So we'll have to divide that up and hopefully get those people that's untrained in school before their annual date that they've been there a year. So it's complex, and but I agree 100% that we would love to have some supervisory training for our supervisors, and that is our goal.
Mr. Chairman, Western Piedmont Community College, they had news that they had graduated a dozen or so new police officers or whatever. Did we not end up with any of those, Steve? That was just a few weeks back.
Yeah, those are sworn officers. That's different. That's the deputies that we would have. Detention school is different. That's a separate school. And I can tell you what happened in detention school. We sent 6 to detention school. Catawba County, I don't know how many they sent. Caldwell County had sent some to Catawba Valley, CVCC. Catawba and Caldwell backed out. So they've got 5 detention officers, our 5 detention officers in CVCC right now. The other the other counties backed out. I don't know if they didn't have sufficient numbers to man the jail, to send those people. That's the kind of issues that we're seeing. This is very, very serious.
How long is the school for detention officers?
It's normally 4 weeks. They sometimes they have a 5 week, normally 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Well, you said you walked 8 miles an hour, 8 miles a day, and I'm assuming that walk is just checking sales?
Well, I'll let Greg answer that.
Well, it's a little bit more in depth than that, Commissioner. Certainly that is probably the bulk of it, but it's movement of food trays. It's picking them up in the booking area, escorting them to whatever housing area they are. It's all the laundry. It's the perimeter checks. We have to check the perimeters, outside fencing. So it's several different things that would compile that total mileage.
All right. Any other discussion on this matter? All right. Hearing none, for consensus to leave this on the agenda's decision item, Commissioner Abley.
I like to study the issue a little more personally.
Is that a yes or a no?
No.
Commissioner Moe?
Yes.
Mr. Carswell?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd definitely like to have a couple-hour meeting on this subject before before we actually vote to spend additional money. And I personally don't feel like the money is the issue. I think it's deeper than the money. And until we, as a employee of sheriff people, get a handle on what it really is, I think I should say no now, and at the same time request a second meeting on this topic alone.
All right. And I'll vote yes, 3-2 to leave this item on for decision. But gentlemen, I would say we've got budget season coming up. We can certainly discuss this item further in terms of our budget going forward. This item, as we've already discussed, lapsed salary will take care of the things that are in this decision item for this particular up through the budget year this year. So with that, Madam Clerk, 3-2 to leave this item on for decision. Okay. Next item, I believe we're at reports. Gentlemen, please get your reports in for our meeting. Then item number 8 is other discussion item, and this will be the county manager memorandum of understanding for partnership with Hickory to construct airport hangar at Hickory Regional Airport in Burke County. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Many of you may remember during our budget workshop that the city manager from Hickory and several members of his staff came over and did a presentation about what the city of Hickory is doing out at the Hickory Airport and asked us to consider involvement with a memorandum of understanding related to the construction of a new airplane hangar for high value jet aircraft that would help expand the tax base and of course expand our tax revenues. And the city is going to build this hangar and maintain and operate it and be responsible for it and insure it. And they've asked us to consider establishing a baseline of the value of the planes that are there, and that anything that's above that would be going into this hangar, that we would share 50% of that revenue to help them with the cost of building the new hangar. And that's what you have before you. And we're looking at having a joint meeting with them next week for the boards to consider and act on this memorandum of understanding.
All right, thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, I think we've all had some discussion about this item. I hope you've had a chance to look at the memorandum of understanding. Do understand that this item will not be on our agenda for the regular meeting, but it will be an item that we'll need to act on at our special meeting that Brian's just mentioned to you. So if we have any questions, we need to try to address those today and be ready for that special meeting next week, I believe. Right, Brian?
Yes, sir. I believe that's at 11 a.m. on the 9th of March there at the airport, which will be in Burke County and the city of Hickory.
Okay. Any questions on this MOU?
I think I had asked the question and I have not heard a reply, but I was asked the question, how many years out will this memo of understanding be? What's the length of the term of the agreement?
The length is determined on the amount of new revenue to satisfy whatever half of the cost of construction is. So once that is paid for, that would be over. I just don't know what to tell you about that as to the number of planes, the value of the planes that would be there to generate the revenue that would be shared.
One other question, Mr. Chairman. Brian, can we do a either or and put a maximum limit?
There is a maximum limit to what we're going to do. It's up to 600,000. If the hangar is estimated to be about $1 million cost. If it's $1 million, then we would share in paying 500,000 of it over a number of years at 50% of the new additional revenue above the baseline revenue.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Maynard. Any other question or comment on this item? All right, hearing none, then for a consensus to move forward with this at our special meeting then next week, Commissioner Abel?
Yes.
Bowie?
Yes.
Carswell?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And I vote yes also. And I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting. Madam Clerk, anything that I have missed or we need to address?
We have a few courtesy reminders that were in your chairman's notes. If you don't have those handy, I'd be happy to go over them for you.
If you don't mind.
Sure. March 9th, as we just talked about, is our special meeting at 11 a.m. at the Hickory Regional Airport. That is the building with the black awning, their administrative offices, and the address is 3103 9th Avenue Northwest in Hickory. If you could please be there at 10:45 for a group photo that will be taken downstairs in that building. March 9th is also the day of the ribbon cutting event for the Henry River Mill Village. Building 12 renovations. That's at 3:30. That's a tour, and then that's 4255 Henry River Road. And then March 16th is our regular in-person meeting at 6 o'clock in the boardroom. March 26th at 8 a.m. is our recessed legislative meeting with the Western Piedmont Community College and our legislative delegation. Breakfast will be provided, and that's in room 211 of the Higher Ed Center.
What date was that?
The 26th. County offices will be closed on April 2nd for Good Friday. And then I would encourage you to spay or neuter your pets. Contact the Animal Services Center to volunteer or to foster or adopt a pet, and to help the environment and wildlife by picking up litter. And that's all the announcements, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Anything else we need to mention? Hearing none, for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Those in favor, Mr. Abley,
Yes.
Moawee,
Yes.
Carswell.
Definitely yes.
I vote yes. Did I get you, Maynard?
I made the motion, but yes.
Okay, thank you. That'll be, I vote yes, 5-0, Madam Clerk. So we will stand adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Good to
Thank
see you.
you.